It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Tuesday, August 29th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have a Provi in the media, the practical word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? It is Tuesday. We are into the meat of the week. Yes, Monday is finally over. Hope you guys enjoyed and had an awesome day. If you haven't yet, go ahead, leave likes and comments to build our community. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up, support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message is learn from me. Ultimately, he came like a thief and fulfilled everything. So great message this week. We will go into that practical word study, and I hope that you guys are enjoying and really understanding the message at a much deeper level. And I would say more than a deeper level, more of a personal level, because for us in this history, we have received this, we have received the Lord of this time period. We are in a place where we're not like everyone else. So I'm just super happy that we're able to take the words and just apply it to our lives in a much more practical way. All right. So it is a wonderful morning. I hope that you are all doing well. For me, my parents leave actually they're leaving tonight, right? Remember, it's still Monday for me. Monday afternoon, they leave Tuesday in the pre-dawn they're leaving. So they leave when I wake up for pre-dawn. They're gone for 2 weeks in Europe. They're going on a cruise. I'm not sure exactly. I think they're going to Norway, Sweden, the UK, some of I think maybe like Ireland or Scotland, something along that line. It's supposed to be like a week cruise. So I'm really happy for them that they're able to spend this time. I have the house to myself, and I'm just happy to be relaxed, but not happy that I won't have home cooking for 2 weeks. So yeah, but I'm just happy that I have that free. Well, I've always had that freedom too, but yeah, it's just a little bit different. Also, I have a church retreat this weekend, so I am excited about this too. Getting away, enjoying some time in nature. Well, it's kind of nature, but not really nature, because you're going to be at an Airbnb, right? Airbnb in the middle of nature. Actually, it's a nice, cozy town for tourists. So it's just nice to, I think the thing I really like doing is driving. It's just nice to take a drive up the coast, the sea to sky highway. That's what they call it, the sea to sky highway. And you just drive up, you have the water, you have the ocean on your left, you have mountains on your right, and just this nice scenic route that you can take. So yeah, if anything else, guys, you need to come and visit Vancouver, one of the best cities in the world. You guys would love it. I think for like 20 years, it's been rated top 5 city in the world, right? It has everything. It has everything, guys. Rocky Mountains to the east. You have like 5 ski resorts in the north. You have the U.S. 45 minutes away, and you have the Pacific Ocean on the west side. So yeah, you guys, it's a great city. You guys have to come visit. And there are some people that are actually starting to buying me early birthday presents and stuff, or like people want to buy me coffee and stuff like that. But they're already like contributing on Patreon. I did post up something else. Like, there's something called Super Thanks on YouTube. And if you press the like button or the heart button, then you can donate. But I really don't. I think I'm going to take it off, because YouTube takes 30%, which is kind of crazy, right? They take 30% of it. So I have another account called buymeacoffee.com. I don't know if you guys have heard this before, but you can actually just buy me a cup of coffee, right? So those of you asking, several of you have been asking me, what you can do. You guys can just like donate 1 cup of coffee, and you can even just do that. It's I left the link in the description below. It's buymeacoffee.com/espresso with Sky. I use this for my other for my YouTube page, but it's something where you guys can just buy a cup of coffee. You don't have to worry about anything else. It's not like a subscription or anything else on that line. So if you want to get me something for my birthday, the best thing you can do is just a cup of coffee, because that's what I drink every single day. Yes. So there is a link posted in the description. That's buymeacoffee.com. And you don't have to buy me one cup. You could buy me 2 or 3. Either way. All right. Oh, movie night. I watched Gran Turismo last night. The actual story, like the way that the movie was made, was okay. It wasn't that great, but when you have a story that builds character and you get attached to that character and everything, that wasn't very good in this movie. However, very entertaining. The racing scenes were so intense. I gave it like a 6.5 out of 10. But it was super entertaining. Like the story itself, you're going to forget about all these stories and stuff because the racing scenes are intense. They're so amazing. Even during the movie, because remember it was National Cinema Day, and the movies were playing for $4 when they're regularly like $15. So it was packed. And it was such a good crowd watching Gran Turismo. Like every time something happened, people are clapping and cheering. It was crazy, right? It made the atmosphere that much better. Well used, $4 for National Cinema Day. And I'm going to tell you this. The thing that makes a movie so impressive and so amazing is because it's a true story. It's a true story. Put it this way, guys. If this wasn't a true story, it wouldn't be as good. It just wouldn't. It's a true story. Like, if it wasn't a true story, then I would be like, lame movie. It is impossible. Something like this never happens. But it is a true story, and that's what makes it like you're more in shock and awe, like, what? No way! Like, there's so many times where you're on the edge of your seat, and then when something good happens, everyone's like clapping and cheering. So I think it's a very, very good, inspiring movie, going through like the real pitfalls of being a gamer, right? This guy was a gamer in his room all day. His father was a professional soccer player. It was just crazy, right? And like I said, if it wasn't a true story, I don't think I'd watch it, and I don't think it'd be something that'd be interesting. But because it's a true story, it becomes more inspiring. Of course, it is totally like there's Hollywood stuff put in there to make it more interesting and more, exciting and stuff like that. But altogether, I thought it was very, very good. And because of those racing scenes, like, you got to watch on the big screen with loud sound. It's not something you can watch on your whatchamacallit, on your laptop or something like that. So like I said, if I was just to rate it just for the movie itself, it's like a 6.5. But when it comes to an actual the only reason I gave it such a high score is because of it's so entertaining. Edge of your seat. Now, here's the thing that I think that's kind of interesting is, like, it is inspiring. It is very, very inspiring. However, it's going to inspire new generations of gamers, even though it shouldn't. Like, what does it mean it shouldn't? Like, it should inspire people that, this person went through that much adversity and then this guy became a professional driver, stuff like that, right? But even in the movie, there's at that time when this was happening, they said it was there's 80 million players for Gran Turismo, this racing car game, right? That's on like PlayStation, and there's 80 million players and only one actually made it. So it's like not even 1 in a million. It's 1 in 80 million. 1 in 80 million. 1 in 80 million chance of fulfilling your dreams, like this type of thing. And, the chances of doing the same thing as what this guy did would be very, very difficult, right? And this guy, successful, still racing today. He's won a race also. He's got already 200 races under his belt. story between him and his father, his family, is very, very real too, because I would be thinking the exact same thing. Like, what are you doing in your room all day just playing games? But now think about it. Esports is so big and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars just playing video games, right? So, I completely understood the shimjung of the father. How could a dad really support a son that was staying all day in his room just playing video games, right? Getting nothing out of it. Like, you're not becoming, something better from it also. So, but he made it. There's some heart-touching moments too, but ultimately, true story that it just makes it that much more better. It's a true story. So, if you want to be entertained, I would go watch it. It's very, very entertaining. Very. All right. Protests. I was actually, the protest, there wasn't one this weekend, but it's going to happen next weekend. And I heard from a friend, a head leader friend in Korea, about the situation. And I actually thought that this Saturday is the last one. The last protest is going to be in Sunseem's hometown. I think it's Jinsan or Kumsan. I think it's Jinsan, right? There's going to be a protest there. However, I just talked to my friend. He said, there's more being planned already in other cities like Gwangju and Daegu and all these other different cities. Like, they're going to plan these things. So I find that quite exciting too. I'm excited that more are happening and people are getting ready to stand up for this history in Korea. And of course, there's going to be counter protests. Like, from what I heard also, there will be counter protests happening at the same time as our protests too. But let's see what happens there. But I don't think they can match our numbers and the influence that we're going to have. Now, for me, the biggest one here is the online ministry. Like for this week's message, for the Friday message, I'm still thinking a lot about this online ministry because, we've been doing it here on MSD and for Espresso with Sky. We've been doing this, right? And this is actually the second time Sunseem's talked about this. But it seems that it feels very different this time, right? And because of the protests, people are becoming more stronger, they're more bolder and such. And I think more people are going to be making content, YouTube channels, social media. And like, as you guys saw in the Friday prayer meeting, there's like 2 people in charge of internet ministry now. And they're like making all this content where people can take it and use it, right? So I think it's gonna be awesome. Right? So I hope, but one thing I do hope is that it's done really well. I hope it's not just going to be like anonymous channels or people just posting whatever they make for them and just putting on channels. I really hope it's people coming out with content that is suitable for their talents, right? Channels that are like funny, interesting, spiritual, psychology, I hope there's just a variety of different channels going out more than just people posting what the internet ministry group is making, right? And I think the more the better, because it's not easy to get a reach, That's why if you even think about it, like the slanders and such, like I see the slanders, I don't even subscribe to them, but I see that they have like 130 people. Like, we already have a ton of people in Providence who have way more reach than them, right? They're the Instagrams I've seen is like 150 people max. It's very, very few, right? And when I look at this, just people don't know social media very well, right? They don't have that social media presence, the savvy, how to understanding it. And this is why there's no reach for this type of thing. But I hope it's something that all of us, too, will be able to get ourselves better into understanding even better, right? So, okay, there's something really weird going on with me right now. I'm not sure it's really weird, but for some reason, I am into signing up for every contest I see. It's really weird. I'm not even sure why. I just keep signing up for contests on the internet. Right? Even things I don't even need. Like, I entered a contest for a saxophone. I don't even play the saxophone. I'm not sure. I'm just signing up for these things. There's one like baby carriage. There's another one audio equipment, trips for like wine tasting and stuff like that. I'm not even using these, but for some reason I am entering these contests. Everything. I'm not sure if it's inspiration. Because, like Sunseem also said that we're not going to win the lottery, right? But, it's just kind of like, I'm not sure if it's inspiration or it's just me and my obsessive behavior when I get into something. I'm not sure why I'm doing this, and the only way I'm gonna know is if I win something and be like, oh God, okay, you did it for this type of thing. Because all of these contests, they're impossible to win. Like, the chances of winning is so far-fetched. So I'm just like, oh, is this really something I should be doing? But I don't know why. Do you guys ever get into that where you're all of a sudden just entering every single contest, and I'm getting all this junk mail in my email and stuff like that too? I'm just like, is this inspiration, or is it just me? Right? So that is something that I find quite weird that's happening to me right now. I don't know if you get that thing going on, guys, but for me, I'm just like, wow, that's so weird, right? But I am doing that. So, did you guys check out the poll question? I talked about it yesterday. The poll question is which of these is the most impactful in your opinion? Whether it's the lawsuit against Netflix, peaceful protests, the new chief justice in Korea, the Sunday messages, the support of YouTube channels, and right now number one is peaceful protests at 45%. So almost half the people think that the most impactful is a peaceful protest, and then it goes to Sunday messages at 26%. The new chief justice in Korea is at 13%, and then we have 8% for both lawsuit against Netflix and supportive YouTube channel. So I find that I'm just curious to see which one people thought would be the most interesting. Right? Now, of course, the most spiritual answer would be Sunday messages. And of course, the messages are great these days, super hopeful. And what did I vote for? Let's just say that I'll talk about this a little bit later, probably tomorrow or the day after. I was thinking about, this week's message about the thief, quietly, right? And the answer that I thought would be quiet and under the radar, and something that would have the biggest impact in the end. So, but like I'm gonna tell you guys this, I don't think there's a wrong answer. There's no wrong answer. All the options are really good, and combined, it's super powerful, but I don't think there's like one right or wrong answer here. These are just 5 of the things that are happening, and it's your opinion of which one you think is better. So yeah, I will talk about why I chose my answer, but I'm sure some of you can guess already what I chose. There's something that I had an interesting conversation with a friend, and it has to do with something that happened at, there's a message in the Saturday Pre-Dawn where it went into Sunseem's message and old messages. And what Sunseem said is that Providence will explode within 100 years. Within 100 years. Which is really interesting because I wonder when this, 100 years from when, right? And is it 100 years from Sunseem's birth, which would be the year 2045, which is, think about that. It's like 22 years later, we'll all be living. Or the beginning of history, like Alpha Day. So would that be 2078, which is, will we still be living? That's 50 years from now. Possibly I could be living, I could still be living. Some of you will probably be living at that time also. So I'm like, I wonder when this is going to happen. I really do. I'm like, 100 years from when? But it just means that there's a possibility we can see this explosion happen in our lifetime, which I think will be incredible. Like, of course, I'm not thinking something like crazy, like, this week's message saying it's going to happen slowly, gradually, in secret, right? But I can see it personally, just from what I see now. I can see it happening more sooner than later, right? Especially because of the protests. It seems like, I was telling you like last week too, there's a major shift in the members' thinking, their mentality, right? And there's no more fear. It's like that Joshua braveness, that boldness that we didn't have before. Because people are going in public and testifying, right? So like this reminds me of something what Sunseem said a while back. And some of you might not have even been here when Sunseem said this, but Sunseem said that, remember when Jesus was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he says, God, take this bitter cup away from me, but not as my will, but your will be done. And he did it 3 times that prayer, right? And the one powerful thing that Sunseem actually said he said that if the apostles at that time in the Garden of Gethsemane, if they prayed instead of falling asleep and they said, God, please just don't let it go to the cross. We will pick up the mantle. We will testify. We will put our lives on the line. and make this history. What Sunseam said at that time is, if the disciples actually did that, Jesus would have been spared from the cross. History could have changed. But they didn't, and that's why I continue. And, for me, the reason why I bring that up is like, these protests seem to be a turning point in the mindset, the mentality of members to testify, right? And, think about that, which is the biggest reason why the path of affliction actually happens, right? Like even in 1999, Sunseam said it's because the followers did not testify properly, right? 2008, same thing, because the followers did not testify properly. Everything had to do with that one point about testifying properly. And that was something that I looked at and said, whoa, that's kind of crazy because, it's something where we realize it's not just about the man of mission doing well. It can't just be done all by him, but it's the man of mission plus the people that are following. And I think that's a massive thing that we have to realize also. Because think about this. When, AJ was, at her peak, when she was doing super well and stuff, the one thing that we have to recognize is I think it kind of made us relax and we felt like we could rely on her, right? And just rely on those like Sunseam and AJ. We just rely on both of them. But when we really, really think about it, we were supposed to be empowered so that we would go out and do even more, but not rely just on those two to do everything. And it's interesting that now that all this stuff happened in March, we are the ones finally waking up and saying, no, we got to change. We got to do this better kind of thing, right? And I really hope that this is going to be a massive change in our mentality. Well, it's going to happen in Korea first. I don't know when it's going to happen in Taiwan, and I don't know when it's going to happen in Japan or other countries, but I do think it's going to have a trickle-down effect. And I really hope it does also. That being just so open about it. Like, it makes me even think about my YouTube channel. Not the member one, not the MSD channel, because it's only for members, but the actual channel for the channel for the world, the Espresso with Sky one. When I think about that, that makes me open my eyes and my eyes and say, oh, what is this really saying then? What does it really mean? And I hope it's something that that I can really, really, that I hope that it'll catch on into the foreign countries where all of us will start saying like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just do it. Let's just be super open. Let's get everything down so people realize what is happening right now in this world. Like, that's what I was thinking, like, even for my Espresso with Sky channel, like, what's my new direction for it? How should I go about it? And that is something that I thought to myself is, yeah, that's something that we really have to take into consideration and not think that, let's just, keep everything like under wraps kind of thing because people won't accept it. But I think the reality is, I think it's more of in our hearts and minds more than in the people's hearts and minds. In the end, people are more skeptical of people who are trying to hide something rather than someone who's just very out in the open. Like even for me, I am more skeptical when people are holding back information rather than telling us everything we need to know, right? Because when you tell us everything we need to know and there's nothing that's hidden, yes, we're going to be a little bit like, hey, what is this? What's going on with this? What's going on with that? But then eventually they're just like, you can't be so angry later on, right? But people are much more angry when they feel deceived, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, you should have told me. How come you didn't say anything about this kind of thing, right? So I do hope this trickle-down effect becomes something much that comes all the way down to the foreign countries too. And of course, I don't think it's going to be right away, obviously. And we're not in the same situation as Korea either. Like, how many of us are actually really facing real persecution? I think in the foreign countries, it's few. It's not a lot. Like in America and Canada, is there really persecution like from the news, the media outlets and stuff like that? Nah, it's not like that right now. And I think it's up to us to really kind of open up and say, yeah, this is who we are kind of thing. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this opening up and us becoming even more bold and more powerful and brave like Joshua too. Yeah, today, in the Provi and the media segment today, it's going to be awesome, right? Because there's like some really cool, interesting articles out there. Of course, there's no articles on the protests, but there are articles about what the accusers are saying about our protests and about the other organizations that are supporting us, and some more details on possibly, well, yesterday there was like news of 3 more pastors, might be charged, and then more news came out today. So I'll read about that today too during the last segment. So look forward to that in the last segment today on Provi in the Media. Okay, so there it is. Let's get into the first break of the day.
We believe in the same God, but we are on different levels.
Put your hands in the sky if you feel alive. All the stories that we made, just you and I. Never losing all the passion. All this love is my obsession. Oh my gosh, this feeling got me heat stroke. His love like a billion pots about to heat though. I ain't never breaking from this bond, cause you and I are only one. If you ain't living with the Lord, then who you with? Who you with? If you ain't living with the Lord, then who you with? Who you with? Life. Don't worry about a thing, it's only summy life. We sing about memory stories that we share. We'll fall deeper in love as we stop and just stare. My eyes only on you, they sparkle with love. Don't forget my charm too. There will never be another. Live this life only for you. I give you this promise that I will hold true. If you ain't living with the Lord, then who you with? Who you with? If you ain't living with the Lord, then who you with? Who you with?
We are on different levels.
All right, so let's get into today's word study. And every Tuesday we have the practical word study. We're going to go over this week's message and what can we do practically from it. When we do the practical word study, we're looking for things, how we can put the words of God into action, or it's going to be a switching or change of our mindset, right? And I think that's what we're going to work on a little bit today, is kind of one of those mindset shifts, okay? So the question I'm going to bring up to you guys is, why do we get discouraged? Or why do we have disappointment, especially when it comes to our disappointment in God? And in the end, ultimately from this week's message, it's talking about, it's the way that we think. It's really our own thoughts and understanding the power of thoughts. Like, what Sunseem says in the Proverbs is thoughts are life. And it truly is. So let me give you an example. I talked to a campus member. And, we've been doing pre-dawn for like the last 2.5, 3 months. It's not easy. It's not part of their constitution yet, right? So this they're struggling with pre-dawn. And we played, like yesterday we played sports, then went to watch a movie. They got home by 10 p.m. So they have a lot of time to sleep, right? They're super tired. So this member didn't wake up this morning. And I said, hey, you okay? Come on, we got to get going again, kind of thing, right? And the thing he said to me was, oh, I think there's something wrong with my body. Like, they're just basically saying my body just can't get up, kind of thing. And I was like, well, I don't think that's the real answer, right? And they're like, what do you mean it's not the real answer? I think the problem is not the body. The problem is actually the mind, right? So let me give it. So I gave this person a question, right? And this person's campus, so they're very close to their mom and stuff. And I told them this. I said, hey, if you were told that you would lose your job, or say your mom would die if you didn't wake up for pre-dawn, could you wake up? And they're like, oh yeah, I think. He's like, yeah, I probably could. I was like, yeah, it's true, right? Everyone would get up. If you didn't get up, your mom would die. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that's not powered by your body. It is absolutely powered by your mind. right? Or if I said the flip side, it's not something negative, something positive. Imagine this. How many of you would wake up for tomorrow's pre-dawn if you would get $1,000 US if you woke up for pre-dawn tomorrow morning? How many of you could do it? And the answer is, oh my gosh, right? Like, yeah, of course you'd get up for pre-dawn. So which means that if it really was our bodies that were the big problem, and of course there are some people that do have like real issues, right? But for generally speaking, if it was really your body that was the problem, then even if someone said your mom would die, you still couldn't get up. But it's obviously the mind, since everyone would get up if the stakes were that high, whether your mom would die or you'd get 1,000 USD, people would be like, oh my gosh, okay, I gotta get up for this kind of thing, right? And this is why one of the big things that we have to understand from this week's message is about our thoughts. It's about what we know. It's the mentality that is key. It's the mentality. What's mentality? Mentality is the mindset. The mentality is the mental fortitude, how strong your mind is that can push you through the most difficult times, no matter how tired you are, no matter what you went through the day before. It's something you have to do, right? Strong mentality means the only thing that's going to stop you is death itself. That's what happens when you absolutely make up your mind and your mentality is like, no matter what. So put it this way. What Sunseem said about pre-dawn was this. Sunseem said that if people knew what happened at the pre-dawn, people would be waking up like crazy. Like, well, what happens at pre-dawn? It's God himself is waiting for you. He's sitting with you and listening to you face to face. Now, let's just say that God physically, like you can see with like your eyes, that when you wake up, you look and you see God waiting at the door. Actually, that would be kind of scary though, right? You wake up and there's someone standing at the door. You'd be freaking out. But let's just say that God was there. Or, God texts and say, hey, I'm downstairs. Let's talk. Like, if he was literally physically in front of your eyes, face to face, you saw him, the Almighty God, sitting down with you, listening to you, having a conversation with you. He's watching how you pray, how sincere your heart is, and he would answer you according to how you prayed. How many people would change their pre-dawn prayer habits? How many people would wake up even more if they were 100% like God was physical and waiting for you downstairs to pray? If you had a chance to meet God and he would change your life, how earnestly would you pray? How much more easily would you wake up? And the problem we have is that we are physical. And that's one of the bigger problems is we're in the physical body. And if we don't do spiritual things, we become physical people. And physical people can only see, hear, and feel what is physical. And what makes it even more difficult is that in order for us to realize, to see, hear, and feel things spiritually, we have to become spiritual first, which is really hard. Why? Because if you're not spiritual yet, you just know that you need to become spiritual. You just know you got to become spiritual, but you're not spiritual yet, so you're not seeing, hearing, and feeling it, right? And we know that the spiritual life doesn't just come to you just because you did pre-dawn once. You have to build and make it every day, which means we get inspired first, right? So something from the message, something from someone, watching a movie, or something inspires you to start doing something, right? And once you're inspired, the inspiration gives you the motivation, the power, and the strength to start something, right? To start becoming more spiritual, going to pre-dawn, do all the different things. But there's another problem. The problem is, do you have the mentality to continue even after the inspiration goes away? Which takes, once again, mental fortitude, that mentality, right? The mental fortitude to continue to do something without inspiration, but doing it with sheer will, the sheer wanting, the absolute wanting to do something, understanding what it means, and it's not about I have to feel it, but just knowing it is important and knowing it has to be done. And this is why one of the things I think is one of the biggest things that we have to realize in life, and I think one of the biggest things that we will realize, especially when it comes to, say, having children. When you have a baby, It doesn't matter how you feel, you're going to work. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing something, you go and you do it. It doesn't matter, right? And that is something that people, when you have something real life in front of you, like a baby that's depending on you for its survival, you cannot do things the way you did when you were single and you didn't have as much responsibility as you had before, right? So the thing is right now is, what does this have to do with how not to be discouraged or disappointed? Well, it first starts with what? Just like we talked about with pre-dawn, it's first about knowing about pre-dawn first, how big it is, knowing God is waiting for you, knowing and learning that God is listening. He's sitting there face to face with you every single morning. That's the knowing part. And when you have the knowing part, like, what God is, oh my gosh, I got to do it. I got to go out and go. And you get the inspiration, which means the knowing part is that big. How do you not be discouraged and how do you not be disappointed? It is first knowing how God works. That knowing becomes that big. And that's why this week's message is so powerful, because once again, God works in secret. God works quietly, like a thief. People don't notice it. It reminds me of a story. Like, remember when there was Elijah. Elijah was running and hiding from Beersheba, right? He's going to get killed. And what happened was, God, like this comes from, where is this from? It's from 1 Kings chapter 19, right? One second. Let me just pull this up. Isaiah chapter... Isaiah chapter... No, sorry. 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 11 through 13, right? And one second, let me just pull this up right here. And what it says here is God comes to Elijah, and he said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now, there was a great wind so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Then there came a voice to him that said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" It's interesting, right? Because it's like this week's message. God comes in the silence. God comes quietly. God comes like a thief. You can't see it. It's different than our expectation. You need to know how God works. Because for those that do not know, they're going to go out to see God in the wind that's strong enough to split mountains, or the earthquake, or the fire, because that's how much they know God, that they think God is like, oh, it's going to be so powerful. It's going to be so this, so that. Wow, this has to be God. But Elijah, someone who knows God, he waited for the quiet whisper. Why? Because he knows clearly. He's not shaken by the other stuff. He's not looking for God in those other things. He knows God. And that's why, wind, not going out. Earthquake, not going out. Fire, not going out. He knows. And because he knows God, he'll go out when God actually comes. And it's the same with us too. Understanding God, knowing God well, right? Listening to the word so that we understand how God works. That this is when we become absolutely confident, where we don't become discouraged. We don't think that, oh my gosh, is God still working with me? Because we know exactly how God works. You see, our expectations of God and how he works plays such a huge role. Because if we don't know, or we forget how God works or who God is, we always end up making a conflict in ignorance. We reject God who's coming to help. Or we misunderstand how God is working in our lives. Then we become discouraged because we don't think God is helping us. And then we're like disappointed, like, God, I thought you would do this, but he did it in a different way. God is helping us more than anyone else in this world. However, the interesting thing is we're disappointed because we think that God didn't fulfill our wishes or God didn't really help us. But this is the interesting part. God has fulfilled more wishes than anyone else has done in this world for us. Right? More than anyone else. But we're most disappointed in God. Like, this is an interesting thing. If a human being actually comes and helps us in a very difficult situation, they help us once, we will remember them. We will remember them, be so thankful to them every time that we see them because they fulfilled just one big wish of ours. Yet God has fulfilled thousands and thousands of wishes, but we still get disappointed thinking that God hasn't helped us or helped us enough. It's kind of like we're spoiled brats, always asking for more. And we're just disappointed about what we didn't get rather than being thankful for what we already have. When God, in the message, when it tells us to always think of the past of all the things that God has done for us, that is the proper way to think. That just being thankful that God, you have done so much for me that even if you didn't do anything else for me, from this point to the end of my life, it's enough. Just like if a single human being helped us in our most difficult time, we would always be thankful every time we met them and saw them. The problem is the disappointment creeps in. The discouragement comes in when we have expectations, which is about the future. We're thinking about in the future, you're going to do this. And in the future, which means you keep forgetting the past and the present, what God has already done for you or what he's doing for you right now. To live the proper life is not about what will you do for me in the future. Thanksgiving comes when we just appreciate what has already been done already and knowing that that is enough. It's enough. What you've done for us, what God has done for us is enough. Eternal salvation, the rapture is enough for the rest of our lifetime, even if we suffered. It's enough. But we're always future thinking. That life is not good enough right now. My life could be so much better right now. Or not, like it should be better, but we're looking future. I have hope. Maybe I'll win the lottery. I have hope. Maybe I'll win this car, this house, whatever it is. Thanksgiving comes when we appreciate what has already been done and what is being done for us right now. And there's no expectation about the future because it's enough. We should be thankful for what we have already right now because it's enough. It reminds me of this verse in Matthew chapter 6 when it talks about do not worry. Don't worry. And especially in verse 34, it says, don't be anxious about what happens tomorrow. Why? Because tomorrow has enough worries for itself. Everything we have now is sufficient for right now. Every day has its own troubles. And we need to turn that mindset. This week's message is, hey, if you really don't want to get discouraged and disappointed, you got to know first. How does God work? And don't forget it. And we've been taught this. We've been taught about the principle of gradual history, right? It's so gradual that it's hard to see with the naked eye. Just like when you exercise. When you start exercising, you go for about a month, you're not going to notice any changes. You still look fat. You still look flabby. You still look out of shape. And it's such a small change that happens each and every day. It's like it's this micro change that it takes 100 days before you see something happening. I was at the gym yesterday too. And at the gym, you see all these kids, they're working out. They're there. They don't have nice figures or anything else. But it reminds me of myself. Well, there they are flexing in the mirror. These kids are probably 14, 15 years old, flexing in the mirror. They're by no means in good shape. By no means do they have any muscle. But why are they looking at themselves? Because they're starting to see change. They start to see it. Right? Even though it's not that great, they're starting to see it. It's what they didn't notice from the past. In the past, they couldn't see anything. But now, I start to see a line. There's a vein. And we need to know that we've already learned this, the principle of gradual history. That's why the New Testament's 2,000 years. That's why the Old Testament's 4,000 years. It wasn't a 1 day, 4 day, 1 week, 2 week thing. It took thousands of years because it's a gradual history. All these things we have to keep in mind, and there has to be this complete shift in our mindsets to understand that, hey, if you don't want to be disappointed, if you don't want to have that discouragement in your life, even what's happening right now, we need to pray. We need to know that, and hey, God, we leave it in your hands. And what's going to happen, we don't know, but it's going to be according to your will. And that's the most important part. So God, we leave it to you. So God, whatever you say, it's going to happen. Whatever you say, we're going to leave it to you. It's all about how we think. Are we going to be disappointed, discouraged because we keep thinking that, it's not enough. It's not enough. God, I want more. I want more. Or are we going to switch it to, let's just be thankful for everything. Like just the rapture and salvation itself is enough. It is. And everything else is just bonus. I think some people even said that in the past. Yeah, this is the great. You should be thankful about the rapture every single day of your life. All the extra things that happen, they're just bonus. There's nothing greater than the rapture. Nothing greater than salvation. And I hope it's something that all of us will realize is just like, imagine there's a fire that, there's wildfires everywhere. A fire comes, burns through your neighborhood, and it burns your house, right? This house that you paid so much money for, yet your baby is stuck in the house, but someone goes in there, a firefighter goes in there, saves the baby and comes out. Are you going to be thankful that your baby is saved, or are you going to be mad at the fireman for not saving your house? You know what I mean? Where the most important thing is saved. The baby, your baby is the most important thing is done. Everything else is just bonus. You couldn't save the house. Well, it's okay. It's my baby, right? You might lose all your money, your laptop. Like I remember when I was robbed in South Africa at gunpoint. Yeah, I lost my brand new laptop and my brand new phone. But I wasn't injured. No one shot me. And that's the most important part. And I think that's something that we have to, we have to change, flip that mindset and mentality. And that's something that we really need to be able to change and shift, especially when it comes to putting this word practically, to make it practical. This week's message is more about taking action to change your mindset, your mentality, more than actually going out and doing something, right? Of course, testifying and that stuff is all there too. But yeah, that's kind of the thing that I got from this practical words from this week's message, that the most practical thing we can do is actually is to change our mindset and just remember what God has done for us, and not have that, not have those expectations that God, you should have done this for me, when he's done everything anyways. Everything is what? The most important thing. Everything else is bonus. All right. So I hope that we can have a big shift and change in the way that we think. Okay. All right. There it is, guys. That is today's practical word study. I hope it's something that helped you guys out with this week's message. And it's something that will inspire you more to push forward in the future. Okay? So let's move into today's second break of the day.
我看见主的模样 So alive, so alive 我听见主的声音 So clear, so clear 他的爱融化我心，使我灵魂安然平静。那话语充满能力，使我能看见改变的神迹。多幸运，在新时代里与主一起经历风雨， 我看见理智前进着 So alive So alive 我听见话语满溢着 So clear So clear 主的爱始终如一不曾改变使我能完全沉浸主话语全是不必使我能体会神爱的旨意多幸运在新时代里与主一起经历风雨一生用尽真心持守我对天的约定属天的路我越走越确信感谢圣灵强烈引导我心灵当代有主同在宝贵时机我会怀抱感谢忠诚实践到底主啊我爱你多幸运在新时代里与主一起经历风雨一生用尽真心持守我对天的约定多幸运在新时代里与主一起经历风雨一生用尽真心持守我对天的约定我看见主的模样 So alive So alive
All right, so let's get into the final segment for today, which is Provi in the media. It's going to be pretty short, just a couple of articles that did come out, and some good news too. So let's start off with the first article, and I thought this was great news. This came out yesterday, that 3 female pastors in Providence, who they say are aiding and abetting. So 3 more. Right, so there's 6 on trial right now, and there's 3 more being investigated. On the 28th, which is Monday for those in Korea, Tuesday for us over here, a decision will be made on whether or not to arrest 3 pastors who are accused of participating in aiding and abetting Sunsim, right? So the Daejeon District Court will conduct interrogation, which already happened. I'll tell you what the final result is, of 3 pastors, including 1 female who is suspected of aiding and abetting indecent assault and semi-rape before arrest on this afternoon. So, all of them, all 3 are accused of aiding and abetting. And there's another person, I think there's I'm not sure if it's a male or female, but there's a pastor and dentist who was also charged with persuading the victim who filed a complaint with the police to drop the report or try to force them to. So the Daejeon District Prosecutor's Office Special Investigation Team charged 6 female executives, and that trial is going on right now. That's the one with AJ in it, right? So, and that charge is aiding and abetting, same thing. Okay, so these 3 have been interrogated, and now it's finally over, and the result came out. The charges were dismissed. So great news there for us, guys. Those charges were dismissed as the Daejeon District Court decided to dismiss the suspects after interrogating 3 people, including the 3 pastors who are suspected of aiding and abetting indecent assault. The court judged that it was difficult to see that they were likely to flee and that there was room for dispute regarding the charges, so it was necessary to guarantee the right to defense. So that's great news that they're not being charged. So that's the first good news is there. For me, it almost feels like, remember, just my feelings, this is a personal opinion right now, is like all these protests and stuff going out is making people, like even the courts, more self-conscious that everyone is watching everything that they're doing. So I feel like this is like a good thing that's happening. A second article I did read, which was coming from a Christian article, right? So you know it's going to be negative news, right? But it's a Christian article that's based on cults, right? And they're reporting about the alleged victims and some more claims that they're making, all right? So like you can just tell by the beginning of this article that it is very biased. It's like victims of CGM when they're still alleged victims, right? Which major Korean denominations have defined as heretical, urge the social leaders to stop defending Sunstein. Like you have those other organizations that are defending during the last protest and such. And on the 22nd, the group for alleged victims of Sunstein and the group Exodus. And Exodus is a group that KDH has been running for decades, right? They posted notes on their homepage, which means not many people actually saw it. And they criticized Sunstein for intentionally delaying the trial by requesting an avoidance of the court. Okay, so Exodus is arguing that the reason for this intentional delaying is because the judge that is hearing Sunsteam's crime right now at the Daejeon District Court is the same judge who convicted the defendant in the case of perjury, saying, I have never been assaulted by Sunsteam in the past. Now, this has to do with the 2008 trial. In the 2008 trial, we all know that there was a girl that stood up and said, hey, guess what? This is all not true. And we were coached into this, me and my friend who were together that day, we never were assaulted by Sunstein. And I basically falsely accused him, right? And then the following year, so 2009, this person was indicted on charges of perjury, and then the perjury was recognized, and then there was a prison sentence given. And the judge that actually gave her that prison sentence of perjury is the same judge that is judging Sunstein right now. So it makes kind of sense that, there is some type of bias there also, or possibility of it. So, but Exodus is saying the reason why Sunsteam's lawyers have applied for a challenge to the court right now is not just because of the biased trial operation. So they're saying there's possibility of a biased trial operation, but what Exodus is saying is that the longer the request for avoidance is, the longer the names and faces of the victims of who said they were allegedly assaulted are continually being harmed, like secondary harm, by indiscriminate disclosed believers of Providence are going to be harming them because they want that to do it long. So the longer they wait, the more harm we can give to these alleged victims, right? And then also Exodus said that they went to the judge who is hearing the case of the avoidance, right? That's why there's a delay right now to see whether they can change the judge or not. And basically they said to the judge who is looking at the case of avoidance, I implore you to consider the circumstances of the past and to conclude the hearing of the case of avoidance as soon as possible so that this crime of disclosing the identity of the victims can be stopped, right? So the Exodus side claimed that there was a situation which the Providence leadership had colluded with social leadership prior to trial, right? And announced that it would continue to monitor it, right? So Exodus is claiming that there are testimonies that former prosecutor generals, prime ministers, National Assembly speakers visited Sunstein to exchange greetings and give gifts, right, in the past, right? And basically they said that there should be no more cases where social leaders, right, whether it's government or people in the organizations, visit the base of sex offenders, shake hands and take pictures of them laughing, right? So basically that's what they are claiming on Exodus' side, okay? And then also one last thing they said is they said that on the 17th of last month, that Sunsteam's lawyers requested an application for avoidance of the judge to the Daejeon District Court, and the exact reason was not known at the time, but in the end, on the 26th of the same month, the court dismissed Sunsteam's application saying there's no legitimate reason for the evasion to be established, right? So this is talking about the first time. Remember, we're doing the appeal right now. So the first time they asked for the judicial recusal, they said, no, you can't do it. And then Sunsteam did an appeal, and now they're reviewing the case at the Daejeon High Court. So I think that was a great thing for them to do. And if you think about it, on top of it, it's very, very interesting that, like, if you look at what we're doing, to ask for a judicial recusal is not illegal. It is legal, right? So, and there's a reason for it, and they're looking over it right now. So it's not something illegal or something that's considered like, oh my gosh, they're doing something really wrong. They're not. It's part of the process. So there's one thing you have to look at there. And then there's another article that says that the alleged accusers remarking on the protests, right? So basically, when the protests came out, a large number of ex-members pointed out, we don't even know what a large number means, there's no number. Ex-members pointed out that the protests was claimed to be peaceful, but it is a secondary assault assembly in which thousands to tens of thousands of people inflict secondary harm on individual victims. So they're claiming that there's a secondary assault happening because of the peaceful protests. But if you look at the peaceful protests, it's trying to tell people that how things are going right now is very, very unfair, right? So that's what's going on with that. So those are a couple of articles that have come out right now. And, that's just the update I have for you up to this point. And I hope it's something that helps you guys to pray even more. But, expect more in the future that there are going to be counter protests going on during our protests. But pray that everyone is safe and there's no harm and no violence or danger and stuff like that too to anyone. All right? So there it is, guys. That is today's Provi in the Media. Hope give you a little bit more of update of what is happening with the trials and, successful 3 pastors that no longer, they were interrogated, but they were set free. There's no charges against them either for aiding and abetting. All right. So there it is, guys. That is today's Tuesday podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Have an amazing and awesome day. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion.